In studio, our first guest to join us here on the program in person in 14 months. We thank you for being here, Governor.
You bet.
We want to turn to a topic that has a lot of the political class, of course, interested, and that's whatever you plan to do in the year 2022. We spoke to people in the North Country on the 4th of July holiday about what they think about this potential Senate race. One woman said of you, quote, "I don't think he wants to do it, but I think he'd be good at it." She senses some ambivalence on your part. Is she right?
She's close. Yeah. I don't know if it's, I got to make sure it's right for me in terms of my skill set and the family. The good news for myself is that I'm really excited to be governor that isn't in a pandemic, that isn't in a campaign, that isn't dealing with some of the things and isn't a candidate. I just love the job I'm doing, frankly. So we're going to focus on that, at least for as long as we possibly can. I know a lot of folks are waiting to see what I might do. I never really thought about Washington before, so it would be odd just to say, well, yeah, let's just run for office again. It's not really my thing. I'm a private sector, I'm a manager. I think Washington needs more managers, but can I actually be effective down there? I don't want to run for something if I can't give it 110% for the 6 years that it would call for. So I'm just going to enjoy summer. I think a lot of folks across the state are just enjoying summer and then kind of figuring out where we go in the fall or the winter, whenever. There's no time schedule, though. I guess when I really feel like I'm at one place or another, it'll hit me, right? The good Lord will let me know what to do.
You mentioned family. What does the First Lady think about all of this?
Look, God bless Valerie. She is an amazing individual. Valerie is very protective of our privacy. Public life has been hard for everybody, not just my family, but I think everyone, but especially during the pandemic, protests and all that sort of thing. So we don't get into very deep discussions because we're not there. We don't have to be there yet. So we've talked about it a little bit around the edges, but let's enjoy the summer, get kids back to school, and really, enjoy everything New Hampshire has to offer. And we'll just kind of, I think she's like me, we'll kind of see where it takes us.
You mentioned your time frame. Maybe on the Senate side, you've got lots of time, but in the gubernatorial side, if you're not going to run, are you obligated in some way to say something? Because there are other Republicans out there who are going to need to start building campaigns and get up and running.
If anything, I think I'm obligated to keep the state from long, overly prolonged campaigns, which we all can't stand, right? So I guess in theory, the longer I wait, the less the people of New Hampshire have to suffer through long Senate and gubernatorial campaigns. At the end of the day, there's more than enough time in 2022, whether it's a Senate race or a governor's race or a town planner's race. There's always more than enough time to get your message out there, connect with voters and raise money or do all that kind of stuff that people look at. 2022 is enough. I think everybody in this state deserves a year off from the constant campaigning and politics.
Last question on this front. You've avoided going on stage with President Donald Trump in the past when he was president. Will that change if you're running for Senate and he comes here?
In terms of going on stage?
Yeah, will you appear on stage with him?
I don't think a lot of people appear on stage with the president.
If you're a U.S. Senate candidate, you're going to probably have to.
I haven't even thought about that. I don't know. Look, I run my own race, so I don't know. I don't know if the former president would come here or anything like that. I haven't really thought about that other than to say I'm a firm believer that getting on stage with someone and endorsements and all of that, I'm never a big believer in it. At the end of the day, as a candidate, you have to stand for the state. You have to, kind of call the balls and strikes like you see them, and you let the chips fall where they may. So I'm not worried about the politics of it so much, just about making sure that I do a good job. And if I do want to run for something down the road, I'll run on that record, and people can agree or disagree with it as they like.
Did you support the decision of your fellow Republicans in Washington not to investigate the January 6th attack on the Capitol?
I think they should absolutely investigate it. Absolutely. I mean, how can you not? I mean, that was an unprecedented moment in our country's history. It was appalling to me. It was shocking. It was, I don't think I'm the only one. It was personally riveting, right? It was shocking. It was just what's really happening here. It was almost surreal, right? So yes, of course you need to find out really what the drivers were. And I don't think there's a silver bullet. I don't think there's one answer to that per se. But I think there's a lot of variables to talk about so that we can learn from it, understand what happened there, understand what drove that really wacky mob mentality to make sure it doesn't happen again, to make sure that we're prepared, we're looking at warning signs, and that as elected officials and leaders, we always have the right message. It can be critical, that's okay. But we always have to make sure that we're driving the right message and appreciate the value of our words.
You said wacky mob mentality. What did drive that? Was it President Trump?
I have always said that there was a contribution, absolutely. But, there was clearly a lot of factors there. So a lot of different groups. There was a lot of folks, and I say that because you listen to some of these individuals who were there in the moment and now they go, boy, I can't believe I did that. And they're very apologetic. But, what drives people to be like that? There's a lot of anger out there. I think we all have to take responsibility in society for the anger, the fight, right? Going after that with social media and just general media in general that drives more of our anger as opposed to just the positive way to drive towards solutions. I try to live in the positive. I really do. And so for me, that's why I call it wacky. I don't understand that kind of mentality.
Education freedom accounts. This is a big achievement that a lot of Republicans have wanted for a long time. There's not a lot of money in the budget for it in the next biennium, or current biennium, I guess. Are you going to be able to fund any of these accounts in the next couple of years, and how soon?
Yeah, well, let's be clear. I think families around the state have wanted this for a long time. These education freedom accounts are very simple. Low-income families finally have the same opportunity as everybody else to deciding the path of education for their child. We're making a shift in the state. It's not just all about the system, it's about the child, it's about the student, and that's where our results really need to be focused on. So making sure that the funding is there for families, especially low-income families that can have that opportunity, is critically important. In terms of funding it, it's just a shifting of the dollars. Remember, all the local dollars stay in those schools. So even though a child might not be in that school keeps the local money. So the dollars per child within those schools will actually go up over time. We have enough money. We're funding education with more dollars per child than ever before in this state right now. We have the dollars, we have the funding, and that provides the opportunity and the flexibility to make sure that finally low-income families are on that equal playing field.
So first ones this fall, maybe, or
yeah, I hope so.
Okay, and how many?
I know
maybe
parents
next year?
want it. Yeah.
In terms of numbers, how many do you think you're going to be able to get in the door?
I don't know. I really don't know how many folks will apply and how many folks will look to do this. I know we had a lot of interest in the last 2 years ago or 3 years ago when we first started talking about this concept. I know the Department of Education is kind of doing some surveys to feel some things out. But I think it's just a lot of opportunity. It's not just about creating accountability in the system. It's the results for that child and that family and making sure that families really have the ultimate say in their child's education.
Let's talk about the SB 3 decision. The Supreme Court, including justices you appointed, ruled unanimously against this law written by Republicans, saying it was a clear attempt to overburden young people who were trying to vote. How does this inform future Republican efforts at election integrity?
Well, look, I think the right concept was there. I think it was just probably written bad. I mean, I don't know exactly. I mean, it was a unanimous decision, I think 4-0 on the justice side, so clearly it wasn't done the right way. So if the legislature wants to go back and try it again and kind of look at the decision and where some of the gaps and the breakdowns happen, that's the beauty of it. This is a great example of checks and balances. I think conceptually the legislature knew what they wanted. Legally, the court said, you're not doing it the right way. We understand what you want, but you're going to create a burden here. So that's a good system where the legislature can go back and say, okay, let's try to do this a better way if they want.
So you'd like to see them try again, do something that would, I mean, perhaps...
Yeah, because, SB 3 was all about accountability for the voters, right? Making sure that, being able to enforce voter fraud and all, things like that. And I think everybody understands if there's voter fraud, you want to be able to enforce it. If the way that it had been proposed to be done is creating a burden, well, let's try to find a way that it doesn't create a burden and just make the system better. It's a good example where I always say you always have another bite at the apple. You can always go back and try to fix something and make it better the second time.
Redistricting. You said in February when you were on this program remotely that you weren't going to anticipate signing a radically redrawn map, but we've seen this legislature has liked to press the advantage and has been successful in doing so. So if a map lands on your desk that has a safe Republican congressional district in CD1 and a safe Democratic district in CD2, are you going to sign that?
Well, I don't believe in safe districts anywhere. I'm a firm believer that almost any race can be won by any good candidate. And so I know a lot of people can try to game the system and the gerrymandering stuff that you see in other parts of the country. I just don't think any of that ever really works out. I'll say this, it has to pass the smell test, right? When you have lines crossing all over, no, we're not doing any of that. We typically never have here in New Hampshire. So first it has to just look right. It has to make kind of logical sense. And again, it's really up to the legislature to kind of get some input from individuals. And I don't know what a safe district is per se. I mean, I really don't.
Well, as you described, it's the one that looks like that.
Yeah,
it's got things going all over the place.
And I wouldn't support
that's a veto. That's a veto for you.
Of course it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. That, if it doesn't pass the smell test and it looks like gerrymandering districts, of course I'm going to veto that.
What's next in policing reform? We know that some things were moved forward and some things were not. So what do you want to get done on that front?
Look, we've gotten dozens of things done on. Let me take a step back. The LEAC Commission I am so proud of because we didn't just put a couple ideas forward. We put over 40 different ideas forward. Some I got done with executive order. Some we've done legislatively. Some need more discussion, as you just pointed out. And so I think we have to challenge ourselves to kind of find that good middle ground where law enforcement can actually practically achieve some of the goals that we're trying to set out. John Skippa over at Police Standards and Training has done a tremendous job making investments. Eddie Edwards and Commissioner Quinn are doing a great job making the investments and driving not just the right message, but saying, okay, we have to go here, we have to go here, we have to invest there, we have to put more training there. I think New Hampshire's done it better than almost any state in the country. You combine that with the civil rights unit that I've created at the Attorney General's office. What we're doing with diversity and inclusion and police reforms is the right way to do it, because it's an all hands on deck. We're not forcing anything. We're bringing everyone to the table to get it done. That sometimes things take a little longer, and that's okay. We're just going to keep challenging ourselves on some of the few remaining items that are out there, whether it's legislatively or, it's really not a funding issue at this point. I can do certain things with executive orders, maybe a couple things left. But at the end of the day, it's mostly legislative, and we just have to work that out.
We got about a minute left. I quickly want to ask you, you're going to get a new Commissioner of Energy, the new department that is being created. Is that commissioner going to prioritize combating climate change?
Well, I guess you'd have to ask that commissioner. I don't
you get to select them.
Look, I think climate change it's a real issue. It's something that we have to undertake. I think there's, one of the top priorities of an energy commissioner probably is understanding that we have some of the highest energy rates in the country. That's a real burden on seniors or those on fixed income. So making sure we can maintain some stability in our energy rates. I think we've done a great job over the past few years, but we need to maintain that, of course. How do we invest in climate change initiatives smart, right? I'm a big believer in offshore wind. I'm a big believer in taking our solar plans and making them more localized to apartment buildings and low-income families. So we're all getting the environmental benefit, but they're getting the economic benefit. They're those low-income families are first at the trough to not have to pay that subsidy. So I think the Energy Commissioner, the excitement is bringing somebody in that can look at things in an innovative way, achieve some of these goals on low rates and climate change, and making sure we have enough money in our subsidy programs for fuel assistance or weatherization. Really good and important things that we've done a bit around the edges on for the past few years, but now really kind of spearhead forward.
All right, Governor Chris Sununu, thanks for joining us on Close Up. Maybe next time we'll be able to be close enough to shake hands.
All right.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate the time.